Hey, how's it going? You are here for Heavy Art Talk, and today we are continuing the series of game changers in our art practice. I have some regular guests with me, James Bousema and Noah Cutter Meihoff. What's up, guys?
Howdy. What's up?
Hey.
Not much,
it's good to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to kind of kick things off, and for you guys, if you've seen the previous series, basically we're going to each talk about 5 practices, thoughts, basically just things that kind of have stuck with us and help improve art. I'll be facilitating the conversation. James and Noah will be talking mostly about theirs. If you want to see my particular tips, you can look at a previous episode I did with Dementula. But just to kind of get started, James, what have you been listening to lately?
Man, so much stuff is coming out, especially right now. Lots of bands have been kind of like revving up for all the releases this year, and this is like prime time for new stuff. But I've been listening to the follow-up that this, I guess you could say, power metal band out of London called Seven Sisters just put out. It's a sequel to their last record, and that last record I think it's called Shadows of a Fallen Star Part 1, and it's like, I kind of like to describe it as like, if you're really into Iron Maiden and you want something like that isn't just a 1-to-1 copy, like try that record out. It's amazing. It's full of like amazing guitar licks that like a lot of them get in your head, and the lead guitarist is also the singer, and he's got a great voice. It's very soaring, very like it's not tongue in cheek, but it's also not playful or not playful. It's very fun to listen to. So they just put up the follow up to that. It's just part 2, and it's excellent. So I've been listening to that a whole lot. And then like the final track is like a 20-minute track. So it's which I usually don't go for, but because I was already sold on the band before, I was like, sure, give it to me. And they fill up that space nicely to keep it entertaining. So I'd recommend it. If you've got a palate for power metal, or like I said, if Iron Maiden, like you're looking for something to scratch that itch, and you've already listened to all those records a billion times, like try this new band out. They're great. And
it doesn't go like super Euro cheese power metal. It's like only a little bit of cheese.
No, there's no like fake horns or like big, like, I don't know. It's not dwarf metal. It's not Viking bikini metal. Right. Which there's a time and place for all that sort of stuff. I like.
I like Twilight Force, and they're super cheesy, but like it's like different styles,
Yeah, it's not like Rhapsody or anything.
Yeah, Rhapsody.
Yep. Yeah, it's much closer to like if you actually, specifically, if you like Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, then you'll dig this. Where it's like it's got some synths and stuff, very melodic, very pretty sounding, and it's less like punk than the older Iron Maiden stuff. So that's what I've been loving.
Oh yeah,
cool.
What about you, Noah?
Check that out. There's been a ton of just new stuff coming out. Probably favorite album of the year so far is the new Lady Gaga album. But in terms of like metal, the new Morbific album just came out, which is really good. Mesa. I was always kind of fair on it. I was always kind of fair on Mesa, but like, I don't know, this one really did it for me. I don't know why exactly, but same thing with Tower. It was a band I kind of like casually liked, but I loved the new one. I feel like that new one is just like a step, 10 steps up from the other ones. Nice. Yeah, because it sounds like Heavy Cher, which is just awesome.
It does.
I love that.
She sounds so much like not in like a super derivative, kind of ripoff way, but Yeah. And then like in terms of a little bit heavier stuff, Cryptual, there's a really cool band, Cryptual. Convulsing Above the Ground, that's one of my favorite albums. The production is just really nasty on it. It's just, the distortion is so crunchy. It's like the crunchiest sound I've heard all year. So I don't know. Sometimes when I just need something nasty, I go for that.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, there's too many to mention. I always like, I throw together a playlist. Like as soon as I like even casually like an album, I just throw it in like a Spotify playlist. So I have all of them together. I was just scrolling through like, all right, that's cool. That's cool. Obviously the new Old Nick EP, the Where Poison Apples Grow, was awesome. Which is cool. We're getting a new Curtain Wall EP tomorrow, so that's cool.
Whoa, okay, surprise.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah, he doesn't really make big announcements, but
wow. I mean, that's the charm behind it,
Yeah, but I mean, there's that final track on there where I feel like he's really blending his like DJ October 32nd stuff with Old Nick. That Tears of a Crying Wolf track has a crazy. It's like really short song, but the outro is super electronic and cool. And yeah, that's still one of my favorites. And that's just it was probably the first release of the year that I even noticed. It was like early January, but I'm still listening to it. So yeah. Oh, yeah. Too many to mention.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I like about both of your music tastes a lot is you guys bounce around a lot. Very like open-minded listeners, like I like being able to like talk pop, as much as metal too, because like I don't know, I feel like in the last couple of years, the level of like artistry in certain pop artists has like been elevated, and I've really liked that kind of return to kind of thinking like that. Like I don't know, like Bowie, right? Like he's a pop artist, but he also was so much more, and I feel like some of the artists that are really popular now are thinking more like that, more thematic and conceptual, which I think is cool.
I think a lot of them also like really having their own voice really helps, because I think for a while everything was starting to get a little samey.
Yeah.
But now, especially in the girl pop realm, we've got like 4 or 5 of them that are all doing something a little different, and it's kind of super refreshing. On top of Lady Gaga now going back to being spooky as shit, which is my favorite of her kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, it's funny, I was kind of talking to you about this, Lee, when we were hanging out last time. And, she's someone where, of course, she really blew up when I was in like middle school. So, middle school, high school was when a lot of her big stuff was coming out. And like, of course, as like a stuck up high schooler, I felt like I was like too cool to like, pop and stuff like that. So it's exciting to be able to enjoy a new release of hers that's so true to form, and not have, that stick up my ass that I did when I was in, when I was a kid. So, because in hindsight, I love all those albums, but at the time, I didn't really appreciate them as they were coming out. So.
Yeah, the older you get, the less you give a shit about labels or anything like that. You just like what you like. Who cares?
Exactly.
Totally. Well, let's get into the topic at hand. So we're going to go ping pong back and forth. I'll have Noah go first. And once again, we could be talking about anything. And while we have like, somewhat of a count of 5 each, it's more of a preparatory practice. We'll keep it conversational and loose and just make sure we cover all the main things. So with that in mind, Noah, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, so the first thing I wanted to talk about was just experimentation in general. It's definitely a really broad topic, but experimentation in terms of not just medium, although that's really important, but also technique. And, you're never really going to know what you like until you try it. And until you kind of commit to experimenting with it, because sometimes, you'll mess around with something and you'll be like, well, I don't like that. But then you'll come back to it years later and realize it's like one of your favorite things to work with. Like, for example, colored pencils are a huge part of my process that I go to when I work traditionally. And like, if you'd have told me 6-7 years ago, well, I guess a little more, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, that I would colored pencil would be a go-to. I mean, I'd, tell you to shut up, but it's because I found an appreciation for that medium because of the combination with other mediums. Because, I do like my monoprint stuff, which is like the acrylic layered monoprinting. And that was a technique that I never thought I would actually be able to implement into like illustration work because it's so random. However, over time, being able to like tune that, fine tune it and committing to like I know there's something here with this and I don't fully understand it yet, but if you keep at it, as with anything, you can find something really valuable in that, which is why I came around to, this doesn't work by itself necessarily for things, I'm being commissioned for necessarily. But if I combine it with another medium like pastel or colored pencil, I can fine tune it in a way that'll, make everyone happy. And that's not even just like the business side of it. It's also, I became a better artist because I just played with it more. And obviously that's just the mono printing. I have a slide for that actually, Lee, for an example.
That's weird. Yeah, just 1 second.
Yeah, you're good. But yeah, it's like I learned that in a class, and everyone was kind of like, yeah, this is fun, I guess, whatever. But, for some reason that really stuck out to me. I feel like as artists, when you're screwing around with stuff, you have like phases, and that was kind of a phase I had, and I abandoned it for a while, and then I came back to it, and I never really would have figured that out unless, there you go. So
they
here's an example.
How they did it in here. Sorry.
No, you're good. So just, I wanted to, because I was talking about experimentation, I wanted to bring up, so on the left there, that's the very first monoprint I ever did. So that's 2017. And I was just, it was like a workshop where we did like, sea creatures, fish, and stuff like that. So I did like this eel. So that's a pretty much a raw one pass, one layer monoprint. And I put
that's just you mixing some colors and then
so that's
slamming it down.
Exactly. Yeah. And then all the orange you see is actually like pastel. So I did mix the media together originally, but like I wanted to show this comparison of like, that's just me screwing around. And I was like, okay, that's cool, but it's really hard to control. And then if you look at it on the right there, that's cover for Mortalis that I did last year, which this is how I use, how I work traditionally for the most part. So, don't write off something that maybe at first you're kind of like, this is cool, but I don't know if I could practically use it. If you just keep enjoying yourself with it, eventually it'll, you'll be able to use it, and that's something that, if I had told myself at that point that like, all your album covers are going to be monoprinted with colored pencil over them, like you see on the right there, I probably wouldn't have believed you. So, and I chose that one because that one is so heavily textured. A lot of them, I go and I fine tune a little bit more, but that one shows off a lot of the technique that is the same exact technique as in the left one there. And you might not even notice that, but it's all in there.
Yeah. Like I love how I can totally feel that because especially when you're young and not like fully into, I guess, being a quote unquote professional artist, like you have time to be able to experiment.
Yeah.
To be able to just like say you've just got a day job just to pay the bills or whatever, like use that and see what like feels good. It doesn't necessarily have to like be a masterpiece or whatever, but like if something feels very like natural and playful, it usually means there's something in there that you can use somehow. And with us, like we've all worked with a bunch of different kinds of clients. Some of them require certain things, others require completely different things. So like, it's just another thing to add to your arsenal. And with you, like having something that starts out so random and messy, you just learn to control it after a while, and it still has that unpredictable nature to it. But like, now that's your thing, and now that's what people want from you because you've figured it out, made it your own. So
yeah, exactly. It's
great.
At first, I feel like any technique feels impossible to control at first. So I guess when it comes to specifically that traditional technique, and obviously I do digital stuff too for merch designs because I don't really do traditional merch designs anymore. But at first it really felt, even though it's so kind of out of your hands, it still felt just the same as uncontrollable as anything else I was trying. So I figured, it's kind of meeting in the middle in that happy place, where you can control it. And that just comes with practice, obviously, which is the number one rule to anything. And then, of course, I brought that into my digital as well, in which I'll talk about a little later. But scanning in all my textures and stuff, like scanning in monoprint textures and using those to where it achieves kind of the same look, but, in a different way. So, yeah, just, experimentation. It's one of the most important things, especially when you have the time to do it, because you'll look back and be like, when you have less time, and you'll be mad that you didn't try out new things. So, yeah.
Yeah, you don't know till you try it.
Yes.
I tried watercolor. Fuck that shit. I hate
agree.
watercolors.
I love it, man.
I know. I love how it's amazing when you master it. It's like a chemistry class.
Yeah.
It feels like, where you really have to think about the water levels, how things spread, and even that is like a very, you're taking a chance on something.
It's timing. It's a lot of figuring out the clock.
You got to get the right paper for it too.
100%.
But I tried it, didn't like it. I've tried other stuff I like much more. Like if I do, I mostly work digital, but if I work in traditional stuff, it's acrylics because it's easy, it's fast, and I can make quick corrections if I need to. But no, I would also recommend just experiment, especially while you're young. And probably, like, if you're taking art classes, you're probably learning a bunch of different mediums at once anyways. So it's worth trying them all out.
Where do you think experimentation comes into play in terms of just enjoying your art practice and not getting burnt out? What do you guys have? What's your take on that, either of you?
I mean, I would say, like, again, I don't think very few people come into doing art because they think it's practical per se. You do it because you like it. And experimentation can be the fun thing where you don't have to care about what the result is. I think especially when you get into doing so much like contract freelance work, it's, your eye's always on the prize of like, well, I have this goal that I have to reach, or else, someone's disappointed, as opposed to if you're literally just doing it for yourself, you can just mess around with stuff and it doesn't matter what comes out of it. That's the exciting thing, is that you might get something out of it that you never would have expected before. So again, it's playing around. It's just literally screwing around. So yeah,
that actually like kind of relates to one of the points that I had on my list. I guess mine was, I guess to jump off of that, was basically don't post everything. Like, leave some stuff for yourself. You don't need to try to monetize or use the algorithm for every single thing you create. Otherwise, like, that leaves you like feeling like almost guilty when you don't post everything. It's like, oh, this needs to be used for something. I need to like keep getting new followers or whatever. But like, your personal stuff is there for you. If you want to, if it turns into something you want to post later, cool. But you need that time to be able to just like draw some bullshit. Just try some stuff out. Do some sketches that are almost intentionally not good, just to like get something out. And sometimes it's just dusting off the cobwebs or whatever, or say if you're stuck on a piece, just drawing. I'll sometimes just draw random shapes in squares or rectangles just to see compositionally like what might be interesting compared to whatever I'm struggling with. Like as a professional, sometimes it's hard to make time for personal work because it's, if you're working all day, you want to be able to turn off at the end of the day. But yeah, I guess one of my points would definitely be like leave some time for stuff that is for you. If it turns into something later, cool. But like that sketchbook is there for a reason, or even just like just random stuff. You may paint on a little canvas that you have that's just to play with colors. It may look terrible. It may not photograph well. It's not for anything, but like you need that. You need that ability to like just get that creative energy out in a way that you're not trying to monetize somehow, whether it just be like social media wise or actual like income wise. It will help your sanity over time, and it will keep you loving it too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just to kind of also jump off of that is like you're talking about, when, because I mean, like I rarely have time for personal projects for the last few years, at least. I just haven't hardly. I maybe get one out a year, if that. But
busy,
yeah, which is great. That's a good thing, but it does turn what you love into work all the time.
Yeah.
So the important thing too is that sometimes with freelance, the unpredictability of it. This is, I guess, more specifically for people who are freelancing most of the time, is you can get everything at once and then get nothing for, a little while. It's not like, okay, well, this person wants something this week, this person, you can try and schedule it as much as you want. But if like 3 people say, hey, I need something in a month or a week, sometimes you're left scrambling, but then you have that open time. And that's the important time to take advantage of that. Because if you're like in that little bit of time, I feel like I'm always tempted when that happens. Even when I have those windows, I'm always tempted like, okay, maybe I should try and make something that I can pitch to one of the merch companies I work with. You know what I mean? And then that'll maybe turn into another opportunity. It's like, you sure. But if you force that, you're going to deprive yourself of exactly what you were just talking about, James, where, you're eventually going to hit the end of a road with something you really like. And sure, some methods are foolproof, but it gives you no time to recharge. So, yeah.
I've gotten to the point where I now just treat this freelance life as a sort of 9 to 5.
Same.
Where after a certain point, I'm done. I go to the gym or I go make dinner. I enjoy time with my wife and dog. Maybe play some video games or watch a movie. Go to bed. That's pretty much every day. Yep. But at a certain when I was starting out, it was very much like stay up until 2:00 in the morning every day, working on stuff just because I could. And I just needed to get the work. But nowadays I force myself to stop. And if I do freelance or if I do stuff outside of like work, then it's either for me and I know I'm going to like benefit from that later on, or it's purely just because like, I think as artists, like hopefully you like doing this enough to where like, you just like doing it to cool down. Like it's just a chill, like I'm just going to doodle, maybe put on some music. It's not for anything, it's just for fun. So I think if you got that drive in you, that really helps. I can't recommend it enough to where, if you're able to be consistent with freelance, you need to treat it like an actual job and stop after a certain point. Go live your life, please.
I like that point, especially with just like you don't have to post everything you make, because I think sometimes there's like the business part of it, like you guys are talking about, but it's also like to me it comes back to even good artists can if you just put a pen in my hand and I'm not thinking or I'm not having a lot of intentionality behind it, it might look like shit. And it doesn't reflect on me being a bad artist. It's just that happens to be crap, and I was just, getting it out. So I think it's so easy sometimes to measure your own artistic skill based off one piece of varying levels of effort you even put into it. So you don't have to post everything, just like you don't have to basically make everything a giant mountain when it's really just a doodle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're the curator of that stuff too. It's like
Right.
Understanding how to curate is so important. It's the same way, you put together a portfolio you're sending to someone. You have to understand what the weak links are and just be okay with that. It's matter of fact. It's not like something against you personally. It's just as part of it.
Yeah, we can't all be, I don't know, like, it's a good example, like what's his name, Kim Jong-gi, who, like, he was famously known for just being able to just like give him a piece of paper, he'll sketch like something out of thin air that
I can't do that.
Amazing. yeah. No, he was a god. When it came to that, he also, like, that was all he did all the time. Would draw, and that's how he got so good at it. But like, you can't expect that of yourself. Like, I don't share so much of like my sketchy stuff just because I know it's like, this doesn't look good, but I know it's part of the process, and that's okay. Just leave it there. It's fine.
Well, in a weird way, like, I've found that over the years, like, something that's made me better is not investing too much in the thumbnails I'm drawing. Like you were talking about just getting little squares for composition and stuff like that. Like, my thumbnails for that have gotten worse over the years. And that's technically become a better thing, because as long as that scribbles in that corner and that scribbles in that corner, I can understand the composition and I don't need any other details.
Yeah, you're able to
not
read
wasting
it.
time.
It's like your own language, that you understand.
Yeah. So
sick. So you guys have both shared one then. So Noah, ready for your next one?
Yeah, I kind of tried to like stagger these so they kind of go back and forth between different types of not necessarily advice, but like, things that have specifically helped me, which the other thing is just networking with other artists, like talking to other artists. It doesn't even have to be about art. It's just like when you what I'll say is I feel like as artists, when you're working and you're just what we were talking about, you're trying to improve yourself all the time, you start to kind of isolate yourself, maybe without you even knowing it. And then when you talk to other artists, it kind of demystifies the idea you have about them and their skill and everything. Just because, again, like you were just talking about, James, like you see all these people's, essentially you go on someone's Instagram, that's basically kind of an ongoing portfolio, and they're posting their best work only, and I find that literally what we're doing right now and what we've done in the past, and like specifically Lee, not to just gas you up here, but like something that you've like this, I mean, being able to talk to you and meet other artists like you, James, through these discussions have helped me tremendously. Because, I'm out here, I'm in Sylvania, Georgia. I don't live close to anyone. So, of
course you live in a place like ending with Vania.
Yeah.
It's so perfect.
Right. If only you knew what it looked like, James.
Oh, does it not match it at all?
You can see all the flags my neighbor has across the street.
I bet.
But again, it's not to say you have this like super high unrealistic opinion of other artists that you look up to, but like when you actually talk to people, it just kind of you understand that they kind of are going through the exact same thing you are, most likely. And it doesn't necessarily mean like you need advice from other artists. It's just it's just a matter of like being in conversation with them. And oftentimes you'll realize if you have no idea how you're doing something, they probably don't either, you know? And I think if nothing else, it's not even just camaraderie. It's just understanding that where you're lost, maybe other people are lost too. And hey, maybe they can help you with that. And even if they can't, like, that's not really a problem. So I don't know. It's such a vague thing to talk about, but I don't know. It's helped me a lot just being in conversation with other artists, and not just artists, but like obviously bands, which are, you know, different types of artists, filmmakers, and just how their disciplines are different, but also very similar at the same time. So,
like especially nowadays where like it's so easy just to like, I don't know, on Instagram, hit up a fellow artist, be like, "Hey man, really dig your stuff. How did you do that?"
Yeah,
like, it's that easy, and most of the time they'll answer. Like it's funny. Like again, you kind of crossed a point. One of my points that I had, which was like fellow artists, make friends with fellow artists and utilize them, specifically when it comes to getting constructive criticism on your stuff. I've now more regularly been comfortable with reaching out to somebody whose tastes I trust, who's usually an artist, and sending them like, "Hey, I'm working on this. I've got this version, this version. What do you think works better?" Or like, "Hey, I'm working on this and I can't figure out how to make this thing translate. Is there anything sticking out to you?" Luckily, my wife is also an artist, so it's nice to have like another creative eye to look on things. It becomes real handy because she'll see stuff that I don't see, and then I suddenly can't unsee once she points it out. But like, I now have become like very comfortable, and it's been extremely useful to be able to contact other artists that I've made friends with over the years and just be like, "Hey, could you help me out real quick?" And almost every time they're like, "Oh yeah, just give me a sec. I'll write up something for you," or even they might even do like a little doodle for you or whatever. But that's something that's really vital in school for any people who are taking any art classes or whatever, is to be able to embrace the idea of constructive criticism. Obviously, you know, anybody, you know, people online will overly, you know, shit on things, and they don't know what they're talking about oftentimes because they don't know. People from outside of the art world don't get how much work is put into some things and how much thought is behind it, so they can easily pick it apart. Whereas us artists, like even in work that seems a little amateur, we can see like where things are working, where they're not working, and how to potentially make them better. So like, why not use your peers in that case? Like, I know it's a little scary at first because you have to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to, you know, somebody to tell you that something's wrong with your work that you've been working so hard on. But I think especially if you're having trouble with a piece and you just need somebody to give you like a fresh eye on things, like reach out to your friends who are artists and use them. If you think you'll actually like get something constructive out of it. Recently I taught at my high school to some of the seniors and juniors there in the art program, and we had an assignment, and then the next day we did a big critique and everything. And of course, like the classic ways to do, you know, compliment sandwich and everything, that especially with kids, you know, they're a lot more sensitive about that sort of stuff. But it was very it was very fulfilling, just being able to look over the work and see, like, say they'd show me something and I really like it, or if I didn't like it but I saw like what they were thinking, it was cool to be able to work with them in a collaborative process to like hopefully like switch something on for them. So it's something you could do for other people too. Like it's very much like if you create a community, y'all gotta like help each other out, because we're just trying to, you know, make some cool looking pictures over here. It's and sometimes we just need somebody else to point out that thing. Yeah, totally agree with you, man.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because I know you mentioned like it can feel a little scary to reach out to people you may not have like talked to before, but personally speaking, I don't know, when I've been on the other end of that, I've been stoked every time. Like it feels cool to hear from another person that they value your artistic opinion.
Yeah, like you care?
Exactly.
Like what I think?
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool.
I mean, I'm not going to name drop, but like there's an artist who I have long been a fan of. And then like one time they came and asked me for advice and I was like, why are you asking me? And it's like, but it was like the coolest thing in the world. Granted, it was about like pricing and that's the one thing I'm bad at giving advice at. But
we could all charge a little bit more, I'd imagine.
Yes.
Yeah.
$100 million. There you go.
Yes, please.
But yeah, no, I mean, personally, it's always been cool to be on that end of things. So just keep that in the back of your mind if you're worried about reaching out to people. I mean, the worst thing that's going to happen is they're just busy and they don't get back to you. And like, it's not that they're ignoring you. Typically it's just that, well, most people have a lot going on. So, that's worst case scenario though. I don't think they're going to be a jerk, and if they are, then like, screw that person, so
whatever, ask somebody else, that person's not worth your time.
Yeah.
And if they're going to act like that too, like, then maybe you don't want their opinion.
No, you don't.
It's not worth that much.
Yeah.
So they may be a good artist, but if they're a shithead, then, oh, well, bye. I'll go ask somebody friendly.
That's certainly the exception. I feel like pursuing art and just the amount of obstacles you have to overcome to get good at art, you usually have pretty good character. Not always, but I think in most cases, people are very humble because they've been humbled time and time again. Which, like, the point you were talking earlier, Noah, that I really like is something that I've learned through Heavy Art Talk a lot is these people who I wouldn't say worship, but I really look up to is like when I was younger, like Mark Riddick, for example. It's like when I actually finally got to know him, it's like, dude, at first he's like the kindest dude ever, but like he just loves art and so open-minded. And he also, like you said, he doesn't have everything figured out. He has his own doubts about his work. And it's like, you're Mark
Everyone
Riddick,
does.
dude. Mm-hmm. But it's like, it doesn't matter. So
you're never going to stop doubting yourself too. Like everyone's going to doubt themselves to a degree, no matter what.
No. Yeah. Like
say you figure something out, then you're just, what's the next thing? You're going to think about something else immediately after that. So it's just keeping that in the back of your mind that everyone has that is such a good mindset to have.
After every album cover that I finish, I'm sick of it. And in the back of my head is like, nobody's going to want another one after this one.
Yeah.
Because it's just natural to get sick of things. There are some where I'm just like super confident, but like as artists, like we grade ourselves on such a harsh scale that we're like when something we've been working on a while like isn't our best thing, I feel like we have a natural disappointment with it, but you got to move on to the next thing. And you know what will likely happen is give it a couple months, you'll look back at that piece and be like, oh, I really like that.
and that piece that you think is your worst to date is going to be received better than all of your other ones. You know, it's like you're going to like, oh, I hate this one specifically. Like I still have a bad taste in my mouth about it. And then that one pops off more than any other cover you've ever done. And every single time that happens.
It's the classic, is sending sketches off to a client. You send them 3 sketches. You got one that you really, really hate and one you really, really like, one in between. They choose the one you really, really hate.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just that I've learned to now, like, instead of giving 3 sketches, give 2 sketches. 2 sketches you're really confident with, and
2 or 1.
That's it. Yeah. I've done 1 recently and it's been very satisfying. Just because I'm like, I like this. Can I do this?
Now lately I've mostly just done, someone asked for a sketch, okay, I give you a sketch. If I have to start from scratch, I would rather do that than have wasted my time on one that, I used to always give like 3. I used to always give 3 as well, but now it's just like I feel like a lot of the times the less, because you can have like nowadays I'll do 1 or 2, like you were saying, like 2 is kind of a good area, but I find that it's just so much. The less you have, technically, you'd think tons of options is a great idea, but the more direct you are with it, like people on the receiving end, I've noticed kind of like that more.
You confuse the client if you give them too many options.
Yeah.
Then they start brainstorming too much when really you just want to sit on a good idea.
And then they want you to combine the two sometimes.
Yeah.
And then now that makes you have to make a completely new third one, even though they think it's a simple fix to just combine the two. It's like the most complicated. Yeah. Anyway, that
helps with you.
Could last forever.
Yes. I think with you, it really helps that like your work is extremely consistent. Like I think at this point, like clients look at your work, they know if they're going to try to get something out of you, they have a pretty good picture of what it will look like. It's just the detail that you put into it and overall design choices, all that. But they know like, okay, it's like we want it to likely look like a lot of this other stuff. So that helps, having a very specific style that you can pull from.
Which is so at the same time, it's so funny, and it's kind of cool that you say that, because ironically, circling back to the experimentation thing, like the consistency is somehow coming out of a technique that felt totally uncontrollable and is a very difficult thing to control. And yet with time and just like playing around with that for years, essentially, it's turned into a consistency. And I think any technique can be that. So yeah, it's cool. See, again, it's cool to hear that. Again, talk to other artists. You'll reaffirm yourself more than anything.
I got one question. It came up in the last episode on a similar topic, but when you're talking about the sketch options and stuff, I want to get your opinions. Have you guys either been in a situation where you've like checked in for feedback with a client too much? Like, have you guys learned kind of like the right rhythm of the feedback loop? You kind of follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because like I sometimes pride myself on being like pretty easy to contact and work with.
Right.
Sometimes that can mean like everything's a walk in the park because you can just get a quick like approved, that's good, change that. Other times I think it can result in clients being like, hey, could you adjust this? Could you tweak this? Could you do that? Could you do? And then you're like 10 edits later and you're just kind of like, you're done with the piece and you just want to move on. But they think that they can micromanage things a little bit more. So I think there's a balance to it. But I think what I've gotten used to is telling them like, here's this. I think this works because of this as the artist. I think this translates good for what you want, but you let me know what you think. That way it at least plants the seed in their head. Like they might think like, well, I might think this or that, but the artist who I trust and who I'm paying to do this thinks this works. Maybe I'll just go with it, what they think, trust them. And I'm biased, but I often think that like we know what works with our own stuff when it comes to like, minuscule little changes here and there.
Yeah, I agree. Just with you talking about the like, sometimes the endless edits, like it is a shame because, and it's not to sound like cocky or anything. It's just like you said, James, as the artist, this is our job. Like we do know what we're doing.
Yes. And
when people specifically want, 100 different little things changed, by the end of it, it's not, they are just not trusting the pro,
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not going to tell the guy who's fixing, like we had a hurricane last year. I'm not going to tell the guy who fixed our roof how to fix our roof, And I get it. Like, don't get me wrong. Like edits are fun. It's part of the process always, usually. But there, like, I'm not going to name pieces, but there are definitely pieces that I'm proud of. But I look back and I say it could have been a hell of a lot more effective of a piece had you just listened to me.
And that's just part of
that.
It's the collaborative process.
Yeah, and it's about, look, I will do your edits, but this is my recommendation.
Yes.
Like, I am recommending. You are the one paying me. I am recommending you this. I always use the word recommend.
Especially since like this is going on a product that they're trying to sell.
Yes.
I'm also trying to help you sell the product better through communicating this in the illustration. Right. And I feel like if it isn't communicated this way, it might not sell the product as well. So
yeah, exactly.
It's weird because it's art and you don't want to think of it that way. But like, these are, we largely work with bands. These are bands that have to make a whole bunch of merch and record orders, which costs a lot. And they're hoping for people to buy them. So our recommendations also go towards that. Like, I want to help you like sell these products in a very comfy way.
And it's always worth like getting across. We do have your best interest in mind. Like,
yes,
we want this for you as much as you want this. Yes, you're paying us, but we do want this. Like, and
it represents our work too.
Yeah, and I think a big thing that comes from like that whole recommendation standpoint is sometimes you see things that people are asking for, and those are mistakes that we have made in the past, and we know how they turn out.
Yep.
And say someone wants this super crazy detailed thing on, a square inch of a t-shirt, and it's like, okay, but that's not going to print, no one's going to see that. So like those are all like, we can all pinpoint times where we've done certain things and people ask for them and we're like, just trust me. Like, I want to tell you straight up, that's not going to work.
Yep.
Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't, but it's always just, again, it's the recommendation thing.
Trust us. We're professionals.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I think the bulk of the collaboration with the client is really in the concept and the sketch.
Yeah.
And colors, like, and the mood and like the feeling. Like, that's where I want all that feedback. I don't want it once the piece is done and you want to add shit that's going to derail it.
Yeah.
So it's like your contract that you charge them out the wazoo if they try to do that.
Yeah. After a certain amount of edits, you start adding to the commission cost.
Yes.
And that helps kind of influence them to see, like, is it really worth like adding all these extra costs to do this tiny edit, or is it like, does it just look good? It's fine.
Right. And again, it's like, that is not a greedy thing. Like, yes, we get more money out of it technically by putting that in there, but
any other profession would do that.
Yeah. Well, and it's literally like, I don't care about making that extra X amount of dollars because of the edits after the fact. That is there to dissuade you from making edits after we've already locked in a month ago,
Yep.
It just, or they, edit the shit out of your piece after you submit it. And then you say, hey, I also said you couldn't do that.
I love how I know the buttons to like fire you guys up.
Yeah, dude. But again, it's not an ill-willed thing. It's just no. We have seen how this has gone down in the past, and trust me, we are trying to help you,
Yep.
So, unless, of course, you're working like with a creative director or something, and they do have an eye for things, and they do understand what they're talking about. I'm talking more about people who are not really visual people, and they want to be the visual person, but they don't, necessarily trust.
Yeah,
it's different. It's hard. It's a gray area because literally every client's going to be different with that. So,
yep. I think Noah, your turn, because you like piggybacked off, and that was one of your points too, because we were talking about community last, right? And then you inserted. Was that one of your numbers as well?
We've both done two.
Okay. Yeah, we've both done two. Yeah.
Cool. Noah.
Yeah. So, I'll go back to kind of a more technical thing, which is reference. First and foremost, like, working off of reference, to me, it started out as something, I feel like early on, you think of reference, like working off of reference images and things like that, as such a bore and such a like, well, I just want to make the coolest thing possible. But learning to work with your own create your own reference and enjoy creating reference as part of the process, to me, is not only beneficial to making my pieces better, but also part of the enjoyment. Because again, like so you probably noticed that a lot of the human figures are built exactly like me that I draw. And that's because they're all me.
Yeah.
So here's this shirt design for Revocation. And literally, like, there you left half of the face, right half of the face, dude cutting it in half down the middle. It's like, sure, I added some muscle to it, but it's kind of fun because like you get to be an actor in a way, and you get to sort of direct yourself. And reference images, they don't only make a piece more natural, they can also help you create compositions you didn't even think of before. Because poses can oftentimes guide the shape of a composition and like how Absolutely. Your eye moves around. And to me, like, honestly, before I even thumbnail, sometimes I'll just get the self-time camera out. I'll mess around with, because I have like, a few different lights. I'll just mess around with a few lighting angles and do like, I don't know, for 20 minutes, just take pictures of myself in various poses. And it's nothing, even if you have the best knowledge of anatomy, which is usually what it comes down to, is just anatomical stuff. Because, even if you're a master at that, posing is always going to be better if you just have a picture. And, for me, again, it helps my pieces look better, but also I've learned to enjoy that part of the process and not just see it as this is just a, kind of the boring part. When do I get to draw? It's like, I've just learned to really like that part.
I think that's the way to go. Every time I don't shoot reference, I regret it later.
Absolutely.
It's very few times where like my first just go at it is exactly like, it's great. It works. It looks good. It feels correct and anatomically and in like perspective and everything. Whenever I don't use reference, I'm always fixing that mistake later. I'm like currently finishing a cover where I'm like, I should have shot reference for this thing, because now I'm editing this thing a million times because I just can't get the pose right. But like literally, I'm like, maybe today I'm going to like shoot some poses for it just to make it feel a little bit. Like, my problem is it's like it looks very flat, and I need something more dynamic looking with some like realistic lighting, and should have done it way ahead of time. But I'm very impatient, so I get like right to the like painting process. So like, highly recommend reference.
Well, I mean, we're artists, we want to draw. Like, our first instinct is to draw something. And it's just when you have that extra element, it's so helpful. And again, it's like, and I say reference, but at the same time, again, it's a gray area, because it's also beneficial to know you're not entirely locked into that reference. You don't have to draw it exactly. You can change one arm, you can change the lighting. Oftentimes, I'll shoot reference and I'll try and get kind of the lighting, because I just like playing around with lighting. I'll try and get the lighting I want, but there's no way that my two, lamps are going to replicate exactly what I want. So more often than not, because the lighting I make is not very natural, but I do that on purpose, I always add tons of rim lighting that isn't there. Always lots of extra stuff. And that's almost never in my actual reference. So
I mean, it seems like you like to do like very strong one source of lighting.
I love one source lighting,
just to get the main contrast of the shapes and everything.
Yeah, and
especially you work with a lot of like black backgrounds, so that probably helps.
Well, and a lot of that comes from just like building up colors for merch. because most things are on a, dark background.
Yeah.
So that's why I often default to that. Like, I feel like I've hardly done any traditional work this year, and it's like killing me. I've mostly just done merch, which I love, don't get me wrong, but just building up those colors from the black. And I also, again, like, this just is, again, it has to do with use reference, but don't feel like you have to do it exactly. Like, if you look at my lighting, what I love more than anything, and I feel like has kind of what people have told me over time is kind of one of my signature techniques is like almost the overusage of spot highlights. Where, like, there's 1,000 little spot highlights in different areas that would not be there necessarily. Like, look at that lighting. It's very soft technically, but again, you're not tied to it, but it's such
sometimes it just tells you where things land.
Yes.
Like, sometimes I just need to know what is the elbow doing when I do this? And like, where is it in relation to the chest and everything? I just need to know where it is. Because if I just guess, it might look real wonky.
And it technically makes it easier too. Like, relieve yourself from the burden of trying to come up with shit. Dude,
like the pros did it. Always. So many of the legends, like Norman Rockwell.
Oh yeah.
Like all those like 50s pinups and everything. Like a modern guy that I really like, who shows a lot of his process. His name's I think Paulo Rivera. He does a lot of stuff for Marvel, and it's a lot of like acrylic paintings of like Spider-Man and stuff.
Cool.
But he shows his process of like, okay, here's me in a stupid Spider-Man costume doing this, but I needed that. Because his stuff is a lot more like realistically lit, so that reference really helps, as opposed to somebody like McFarlane or something where it's very exaggerated.
Right.
Use it; it will help. Yeah,
and again, like specifically too, is if you're stuck compositionally, like people don't always consider how helpful like reference photos are with composition. Because they think, well, you mess around with that with like thumbnailing, and that's just for like anatomy. Like, no, your poses that you come up with and you shoot for can help drive the entire composition. And I do that all the time. So, like, I feel like that's something that I never really heard talked about with reference photos, is like composition and reference felt like two different things, but they're absolutely one and the same.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. James.
Cool. I guess my next one would be. Okay. Yeah. My next one would definitely be, I think, for anybody who feels, since we're talking about finding time to do your own stuff, if you're able to, I highly recommend every artist try to do a series of something where everything has to be within a specific set of limitations, whether it's composition, color schemes, media, just themes or whatever. Try to do a series of try like 5 just to begin with. These are all part of a series. They all are here to complement each other. It forces you to put I think as artists, when we try to think of new pieces to start, it feels like there's too much to choose from. Like I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. And it's like, sometimes I find it really helpful to just put something in a very limited set of requirements and then work within those. So like ones that I've done recently, since I've been doing a lot of stuff for Magic the Gathering, I wanted to do a set of tokens to go with it to sell at conventions. And those have proved really refreshing, and I've gotten really excited about doing them because they're all, I'll send you some for reference.
Cards.
But yeah, these little cards where they're all supposed to look like retro fantasy cards that are all, related to different like Magic tokens and stuff. But all of them have a black background, usually just a couple colors, but then I just figure out the details with all those colors, and it's all within this like retro fantasy aesthetic, but every single one of them looks similar to this in the same format. And it all has to complement this aesthetic. It's not, and it's all within these dimensions too. It's a very vertical piece with this framing around it. It's for this purpose, and that helps me like be able to do like just a bunch of them at this point, because I know what my limitations are and I could just try something else in that style. Whereas I have a bunch of clients that ask for different kinds of theming and approaches to my stuff, which is kept things interesting. But I think for myself, it's been very relieving to be able to explore, oddly enough, like within a very limited set of boundaries, and I get super creative with it, because now there's not like this huge ambition to each piece. It's just got to fit in this little box, and it's all got to look good next to each other. And I think through that too, like in social media and stuff, it's a great way to get like people following your stuff, because they want to see what the next piece looks like. Like or even if you're maybe selling prints of it, say you're like, oh, I did a dragon, check this out. Some people might be like, oh, I really like that dragon, but are you thinking of maybe doing like a wolf? I really like doing wolves. If you do a wolf, then I'll maybe grab a print of it or whatever. And it helps you be able to explore a little bit without you feeling like you've got too many options. I've had a lot of fun with that sort of stuff, and it helps in general just doing something that's for yourself, like we were talking earlier. So yeah, like I've been having a hell of a time with these sorts of things, and I overthink what I want to do next sometimes, and sometimes it's just good to just be like, do this, go, like make that look good, then we'll go from there. But yeah, like, and that's not to like plug these or anything, but like these are
they are super cool.
yeah, like, but like I'm just gonna keep adding to them, because like Magicons have proven to be like a very like a great part of my business. Yeah, so doing things like this has like really benefited overall from me just doing something in my free time and trying to like make it like very easy to replicate.
Yeah, well, when you do something and it works, you can kind of do it indefinitely, so, or infinitely, I should say,
Yeah.
And
no, it's like now I could just like if somebody's like, I don't know, do a salamander for one of these, do a 2/2 salamander for me. Like, okay, cool. I somewhat know what that's actually going to look like, and it's not some big ambitious thing that's hard for me to wrap my head around.
Right, and as a consumer, even not just as an artist, but like as a consumer, I'm always. Like, I always like a series over an individual thing personally.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know what it is to it, but like, say someone sold a set of prints as opposed to one giant print. Like, I'm going to go for the set of all the little prints, and I can display them together. And, I don't know what it is. There's something about it. I think just what you said, maybe about like the, who knows, maybe it's just my OCD and I want like cohesion with everything, or else I'll explode,
Well, and
I think it's the Pokemon effect. That's what I think it is.
I was literally about to say, as business owners, sometimes utilizing the Pokemon gotta catch 'em all effect can be beneficial towards keeping the business afloat.
You were actually thinking that?
Yes,
that's pretty
literally.
Crazy. We were synchronized.
Literally, we're millennials, so we're probably thinking.
I'm a Gen Zer. I was a Yu-Gi-Oh kid, so
I was into that too, man.
Yeah.
Well, I'm surprised Pokemon's still insanely popular.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was just as big. Like, I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon. I feel like they were huge at the same. I loved Pokemon Snap for N64. That was.
Oh yeah, me too. Yeah, I remember going to the Blockbuster and printing out those pictures.
Oh yeah,
it was tons of fun.
I love that advice as well, James. Like, because like you also, if you're doing a series, I naturally find that I get more and more comfortable with whatever I'm doing, and it kind of like gets better, or it makes the previous ones more interesting too, because they're each like rare and unique in their own way. So that's a really unique point I haven't heard.
Yeah, I mean, just like an example, if I can just kind of piggyback off that. Like, I did a series I'm really like obsessed with. We actually talked about it last year, Lee, on a previous panel, but like I'm obsessed with like medieval shiny artifacts, specifically relics, reliquaries, and stuff like that. I'm just like, I have an obsession with them. So I just started drawing them, and I made a whole series of them that I haven't picked back up in a while that I'd love to, but that series alone has gotten me like so many gigs I have now. Like when my first gig that I got that I really felt kind of put me on the map is I drew the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards emblem that they used for a few years. They don't use it anymore, but it was like this skull on a pedestal with a bunch of weapons around it with a chainsaw in it. But that came from me drawing this series of reliquaries. They found it on my website and were like, we love this series. Just do something do something. Well, literally, they said, do something that would fit in this series. And I'm like, perfect. So again, it's just, and it's like, since then I did a couple for Acetus, who, you know, I've like done a gazillion things for at this point. And then probably like my most successful ghost design was I did a reliquary, like a medieval reliquary of Papa 5 that came out with when they announced the album. And like, I don't know, it's just that series has proved, you prove to yourself that you can do something. And then from there, you know, you can apply it to so many other things, even if it's not within that series.
Yeah, it's that Field of Dreams quotes. If you build it, they will come. Sometimes it just takes you like putting something out there into the ether, and if you do it enough and you're consistent with it, like clients will start looking at that stuff, be like, could you apply that to our thing? I've literally had that with Magic at this point.
Yeah,
they've like attached some of my stuff where it was a series of like, oh, we really like these. Could you just like do this with this character? Like, sure. That makes it easier for me. I'm glad I did these.
Yeah.
All right. Noah, number 4, right?
Yeah, that actually goes like perfectly into my next point, which is just draw what you want to draw. If you're really into something and you want to draw it, like you're just going to literally kind of what we were just talking about with like, I guess the series applies to it because you feel compelled to do something within a certain realm. But drawing like specifically what you like to draw, you're going to be so much more motivated to do it. Therefore, you're going to get more practice in with it.
Your heart's already in it. You don't have to force it.
Yeah, and while I do understand there is a certain practicality aspect in understanding your audience and stuff like that, that's not exactly what I'm talking about with this. But like drawing what you want as opposed to what you think is expected of you, you'll find ways to apply that, maybe not immediately, but eventually to professional things as well. But this is less of a professional thing, although it does tie into it. It's less of a professional thing, more of just a like building your skills. Like, again, like I mentioned the reliquaries, like I was just really into those. So I learned how to hone my technique of drawing shiny stuff, which is like 99% of the stuff I draw. It's just like, I feel like a lot of the times when you're starting out, you're kind of trying to do this blanket stuff of like, well, what's most palatable for the most amount of people. Like when I first tried to start getting like freelance work, I did not go to metal bands. You know, this was not the realm I ever expected I'd be working in. And yet, because I just felt compelled to draw the sorts of things that this market wants, I eventually fell into it. You know, it was a very natural thing. I didn't force it. I was trying to get more into like publications and things like the Fangoria stuff. Mm-hmm. And while I did get some of that stuff, it very quickly pivoted to, well, the biggest thing that influences me is like, like old school metal covers. So like that's what I'm drawing, and now that's where I've wound up. So you're not only you're not only honing your skill, but like you're also eventually, if the styles line up, people are gonna, like you said, whatever that quote was, if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
But
no, yeah, like that's wild, because that's very similar to how I came about things. It's weird because like obviously you were already into extreme music.
Yeah.
But your brain was not like, oh, I'll do that. Like I'll make art for these bands or whatever. Like that was my thing too. Like I was 16 listening to Hate Eternal and shit. Mm-hmm. But I never thought like, oh, I'll make album covers for some reason. But I always thought, more what you're thinking, like just like illustration publication, or even like just gallery artist type stuff. But it wasn't until I got like older, more experienced, more professional, that I like, I'll just like, it's right there. Also, just because of what the stuff that I was making, metal bands flocked to it because it worked very well for their type of stuff.
Well, and I feel like when you're kind of coming in, like you're growing up, you don't exactly think that that's a market, but it is.
Yeah. Somebody got paid to do this. Somebody paid their bills.
Forget about that, and it's interesting because like, obviously, like not everyone takes the art school route, and you don't have to.
Yeah.
Obviously I did, but I'm a big proponent of you absolutely don't have to. More oftentimes than not, or more oftentimes not than. But like, I had mentors that I really appreciate, but they very much discouraged the route that I wound up in. Because they didn't see it as a practical route, and they were kind of like, well, be a little bit more palatable. It's like the second I stopped trying to be palatable, I got work, Yeah. So it's just, you kind of need to take that leap of faith, Mm-hmm. I think that's the most important part. And it doesn't mean it's going to happen immediately. You just have to build that portfolio of like stuff you just really like. And because your heart's going to be in it so much, and because you're going to be doing that the most, you're going to get the most practice out of doing that, it's going to be your best work. So
well, it also makes it makes you stand out, because it now is showing something that only you can potentially provide, as opposed to something that's more of a workman-like thing where mm-hmm. it's all about like a more technical proficiency sort of approach to art. Whereas like you can draw these things, you are hired to draw these things, maybe like something like a storyboard artist or something like that. Which is great.
Which is great, but the scary thing about the market right now is that like that's unless you have a very unique style, a lot of those things are starting to sadly get displaced, So and of course they're also coming for us, but like, once you've built that style and, people can recognize you instantly, that comes from nothing else but you doing what you like to do, so.
Yeah. I think that's actually a great, like one of my next points was like,
not that I'm for displacement.
No, but like we have to acknowledge like what is happening.
Yes.
Because we're all dealing with it, and the younger crowd is definitely gonna have to fight it a lot more than we have. But like I think like one of my points was basically all about like style kind of trumps technical proficiency, I think. Like one can inform the other greatly, and there are plenty of examples of like huge artists who like grew up studying the technical stuff and became masters, but then did something way different.
Picasso.
Yeah, exactly. So you learn the rules, then you break them. But I've grown to learn over the years, like, since this discussion is largely about like what helped us as artists, is that like I'm way more pleased with my stuff that's not trying to be like super realistic or super accurate to any sort of like photo details or whatever, and is way more about like creative expression and exaggerations. Whatever works for the piece and makes the piece work, even if it doesn't technically make sense, is usually the better option. So maybe like an example would be the work of like a Simon Beasley, who did, you know, like tons of stuff for heavy metal, where like it's so exaggerated, like there's muscles where there shouldn't be muscles. There's poses that are really awkward and unrealistic. But it is informed by the fact that he is like an extremely technically proficient artist that decided to lean into a way more exaggerated style. Frank Miller, you know, like his early stuff is way more classic comic book, but the more he became Frank Miller, the more it became like that is that style. And then people would seek out something in a Frank Miller style. And like oftentimes it really is about just what can feel right versus like what makes sense. And that's going to depend on each artist. But whenever I have to get things that need to be like somewhat photo real or photo accurate, I start to get really bored and I feel like I'm losing my creative voice a little bit with it. Whereas like I love the artists that don't really care too much about any sort of accuracy, and it's more about their personal artistic voice coming through the art. Because I know that like, oh, that's something that I can't do because they think in a completely different way than I think. They have different tastes than I think, as opposed to like an artist who paints a hyper realistic photo, like painting of a photo, which is its own great skill. There's plenty of artists that do that and make a great living off of it. But I think as artists, like I think for us, it's a little less interesting. Mm-hmm. I don't see the voice as much. And I think like having a style that you can hone in on, like we were just saying, also helps people on the outside and potential clients see that and be like, ooh, that's interesting. That's different. That's unique to them. I want to check out more of their stuff. Or maybe I want to see how they can apply that to my thing. I'm looking for an artist for something, and they've got something unique that maybe I haven't seen out there. That takes time, though. Like I don't feel like I got my quote unquote style until like I was out of college. But some people like get it in high school and they just like improve on that forever. So it's going to be different for everybody, but that's why you experiment and everything. But you got to just let it be able to evolve. But yeah, the technical stuff, you know, it's good to learn, but and especially if the piece that you're doing like requires like, okay, if it needs to look like an actor, say you're working with likenesses, it's got to look like them. But if it's just like a random thing that isn't from anything and nobody else has a point of reference, then you could like, it's up to you what that thing looks like. It's just got to look cool. It's got to be visually arresting.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of the people that you talk to on here, Lee, like very much have that skill of like, they have their established skill set in terms of the technicals, but they do their thing with it. And that's what makes it interesting and probably why a lot of bands want to work with them.
And I think one thing with style too is like by working and honing in on a style, naturally your art isn't going to be for everybody either, which is just fine because art that's meant for everybody appeals to nobody.
Yeah. It becomes very boring, and very stale, very easy to forget and pass by, which is the opposite of what any artist wants. We're all competing for attention out here, so you might as well try to lean into something that makes you stand out a little bit more.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing too when you talk about that is personally, a fear that I have is losing the gesture.
Yeah.
It's like by the time you get to the end of the piece, the worst feeling is you've worked so hard on something.
Yeah.
You look at it and you feel like you lost that initial gesture you had in the sketch. Like oftentimes, like when you think you have, you haven't. Because you were talking about this earlier. You look back at it a month later and you love it, even though you hated it when you finished it. But it's like, you got to always keep your eye on that. It's like, am I doing too much? Because it can become mechanical so quickly, especially with digital stuff, and like I work like when it comes to like covers and stuff, I work traditionally. And then I do I'd say it's about 90% traditional mixed media, 10% digital edits. But I really got to make sure when I'm in that last 10%, I don't make I don't undo a lot of that work I did. And don't get me wrong, like in the digital process, you can get lots of gesture and expression. Like it doesn't matter the medium. It's just when you're in that tool, it's so easy. Like it's so tempting to be able to rework and over, because you can work infinitely on something, when you're in that realm.
Yeah, save your past versions, people. There's a reason why we do, Big Scary Beasts revision #1 final on all of our file names. It's just because we need to make sure that like you're not overworking something to death. Like is the core idea really improved by an extra couple hours on it, or can you just save yourself a couple hours?
I mean, I feel like you're really good at that, James. Like
I
looking
try.
at. Oh, I guess we're covering it up. Let me see if
right.
I can. But like this. I'll have to pull it up. But like, I looked at some of your stuff like up close, and it's just you can see the strokes still.
Yeah,
even if they are digital, and like, I like that you really think about that.
It also has saved my ass now in the long run, because earlier on I used to do, maybe like pre-pandemic, I used to do a lot of stuff that was way more hyper detailed, and that's kind of like what I wanted my selling point to be. But then I kind of realized that wasn't super sustainable, and what I was pulling from was already like, more retro artwork that when you look up close, it is less detailed and you can see the artist's hand in it a little bit more. So I decided, just like for my own sake, in terms of time, I need to lean into more stuff that is a little bit more gestural. And then it also just ended up like improving my artwork, because now it looks more natural and painterly, the way that I like that old artwork to look like. I guess not to double dip on my points, but I guess like my last point was basically like, don't sweat the details.
That's my last point.
There you go. There you go. We get to meet.
Don't overthink it is what I have. Yeah. But, like literally, it's the same thing you're talking about. So like
especially since like I think with a lot of, since we're largely in the metal world, when we get potential concepts from bands, I think sometimes, not always, but sometimes a lot of the bands have a tendency to have this huge idea, or like all of these lyrics that they've done to fill their album with, and they want to include every bit of it in the cover. And sometimes you just got to tell them like, okay, we got to narrow this down. It can still be a very detailed piece, if they want it very epic, then that's a different thing. But in terms of like things that you can recognize on the cover, there are certain things that are there for the lyrics to describe, and there are certain things that the art is there to describe. You don't need to put every idea on the cover. It just needs to properly represent what's inside and let the music fill in the blanks. Unless you've got like a client with a crazy budget and they want you to like illustrate something for each song, then that's a different thing. If they got the budget and time for that.
I got to do that with the recent Asadas album just because that dude loves commissioning artwork. That's my buddy Gage. He just loves it. But like
Dream Client.
Yeah, I love Gage. He loves to want to put every lyric into stuff. I don't mean that in a bad way if you're listening, Gage.
But you can't do that in one piece.
But you can't. No, exactly. But like rarely are you going to be able to, like, that's a lot of money. And like, and if they're trying to get you to do it for cheap, it's like, all right, well then you're getting a scribble per song, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a case.
And if it didn't even like money wise, if it didn't line up, I would just be like, I'm advising you that this is a bad idea. Cause we don't want to like half-ass everything when you could just have one really good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. The Ron Swanson quote, don't half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing.
You and the movie quotes tonight.
I know, I got more quotes. But yeah, no, I've learned so much and have gotten so much better and faster as an artist by not being overly precious with detail. Because it like, if anything, like what I feel like my most successful covers are the ones where like the sketch and the final are, at least from a distance, fairly similar, where like all the information is there pretty clear. It's just about fine tuning everything so that it looks good on a 12x12 vinyl, or potentially, if they need it for their backdrop at concerts or whatever, it's got to hold up at a certain size. Yeah. But I think through me kind of finding my style, which is pulling more from retro artwork that is more, I mean, you look up close on old Frazetta pieces, like it's super gestural and messy. He would do some of these things like overnight because he had to hit a deadline, and that just gives it so much personality. So, and I've often felt time, like if I hyper fixate too much on every single area, then no area feels like the focus, and everything just feels a little too crowded and noisy. Yeah. You've lost that sense of motion where everything just feels very static and overly detailed. Like that's what a lot of like AI art does, which is it hyper details every single part of it to where there's no life to it anymore. There's no hand of the artist there.
Right. And I think it dulls the immediacy of it. It's something that's so important with stuff like really anything is the immediate impact of a piece so that you're hit with it right away. And you can have little details in there that, you like can explore after you've kind of dived into it. But, it's all about hierarchy, right? Yeah. You want to know, like, you want to have that instant image. And like have people be able to recognize that. Something that you were talking about that's literally in my notes, James, is understanding the mode in which people are going to interact with this, what you're making the most. Mm-hmm. Whether that be on, a vinyl cover, or even maybe they're not putting it on vinyl. Maybe it's only going on CD, or maybe a lot of people are just seeing this on their phones, So like, which sucks.
It might just be purely on Bandcamp and they can't print physical copies.
Right.
So
exactly.
It's got to work, for a lot of people
everywhere,
like on their cell phone, maybe a max like 5x5.
Right.
Image that they pull up on the desktop.
Doing like cover details versus like a merch design where it's like a silk screen is just not going to print all those details. It's going to turn to mush, and that's something I've learned over time too, because I mean, it's like, over several works over the years, it's like I've been able to kind of fine tune a little bit more how my stuff looks screen printed. So I've like learned with every single shirt design, that works, that doesn't, that works, because that is a whole realm that can be very confusing at first, and still confuses me because they all ask for different things from different people all the time. So,
I've done covers where, at least like early on, some of the covers that I did, which I'm all proud of, but I've learned since then, the amount of details that are important in areas and that won't translate in others. You can't control how these things are printed.
No.
So I'll sometimes get a cover back, it's finally on vinyl, it's done, it's out, and I'll look at the vinyl and be like, oh man, you can't see like these chunks that I did over there because it just printed too dark or maybe
it's
got
always
slightly cut off.
That's
always too dark. It's never going to be as vibrant as it is on your computer.
And no matter how many times you explain that to the client, they will still ask you to make it darker.
It's like, why is it so bright? It's like, well,
at least in my experience, I try to err. It's funny because if you look at a lot of my works, it's like they're super dark, but I mean, I'm telling you, 99, I'm not saying all the time, but that's not me. There are a lot of pieces that I did intentionally make very dark and stuff, but I try to start more vibrant, especially now. I've learned that over time where it's like I err on the side of brighter so that if they ask me to make it darker, I'll make it darker, but it won't be as dark as it could be. Because again, like always, print will always, most of the time, always be darker. So
and especially
there's only so much you can do. At a certain point, again, it comes back to the don't overthink it. Is like there is a certain point you have to realize it's out of your hands, and no matter what you do, like all printers are different, and this like vinyl plant is not going to print your jackets the same way the other one is. They're going to use different settings. And even if you give them the settings they ask for, the calibration is different on different screens. And it's like,
I've oddly found some things that have printed in vinyl too dark, like print great on CD. It's a completely different process, different printers, but we're largely, it's out of our hands at that point.
Right. Well, so I had one cover that printed really great on vinyl, really great on CD. And then the cassette, clearly their magenta levels were super high because it's very pink. And you even I looked at the lyrics and I didn't do the layout. I like to do layout. Because I'm also I love doing graphic design as kind of I like bouncing back and forth between graphic design and illustration so I can kind of get fulfilled up with both those sides and it's like a break, but that's a tangent. I noticed that their layout, even just the white letters had a magenta edge to them. So I was like, okay, good. It's not my fault. It's the printer.
No. And I'm sure that happens with classic records too. I look at, I don't know, Sepultura's Beneath the Remains. There's a whole rest of the painting to that Michael Whalen piece. There's a whole rest of the skeleton, and that's just a crop of it. And I want to see what that full piece looks like in person, because I'm curious. Did they up the reds on it? Did they up the contrast on it? Did oftentimes you would just license it out to different bands, and especially a lot of those classic covers. But it seems like a very relatable issue among artists where it's just I submitted them one thing and it might come out a little different, but sometimes that different version can become the iconic version. And it's I'll tell you right now, up to the world at that point.
I'll tell you right now, a lot of my physical pieces look very different from the digital scanned versions of them. I'll intentionally change things because, again, the ultimate goal is not to, in my opinion, and why I like to mix the digital and traditional process, my ultimate goal is not to make it look exactly how it looks as the traditional piece if you're seeing it hung up on a wall. Is the best ultimate product. And if I can make it better in those final stages and make those few tweaks that are going to enhance the experience of how most people are actually going to interact with it, I will. Now, granted, that's a slippery slope. You don't want to go too far, kind of what we were just talking about it. But, sometimes you just need to change certain things. And
it's not an uncommon thing. I know people who do it for magic cards.
It's like where they're like the is backwards. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. They flipped it.
They'll do 85% of the piece in oils, and then just for that last bit where it's sharp for production purposes, they'll add the digital bits to
it. I would say that's comparable to 99.99% of anything traditional I do. It's
whatever makes it look good.
Exactly. And it's all about, again, it's how are people going to actually see this? They're not going to come to your house and see the painting,
Right.
They're not all going to go to the gallery show where you might show it, So like most of my pieces collect dust, so I care a lot more about how the public is going to interact with it. So, yeah.
I think those are some pretty good points. Very useful.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, this is a blast. This is going to be a very good episode. So I appreciate both you guys. So you're going to be at a convention soon. Let's do a quick plug, whatever you guys are working on, just succinctly. So you're going to be by the time this comes released, you're already gone. But what else are you working on? Or what do you got to sell?
My next big convention after this will be this summer in June at MagicCon Las Vegas.
Oh, nice.
So there I'll have a bunch of my token set that I'm currently working on additions to, as well as a bunch of artist proofs of a lot of the Magic cards that I've already gotten to design, as well as like play mats and some original stuff as well. Like I bring. I now have been doing an artist series, G-Clay prints of some of my album covers, like including this Morgul Blade one. So I'll be bringing those to me as well. So if you want to get one of those in person, and if you're in Vegas, come on down this summer.
Oh yeah. What about you, Noah?
I'm not like I'm mostly just working on a bunch of various stuff that'll come out eventually. I have no idea.
Yeah.
That's how it be sometimes.
Yeah. I've been mostly working with the Ghost stuff. That's been pretty much my whole year.
Congratulations. That's an insane body of work right there.
Thanks.
Totally.
I mean, we've been just absolutely firing through designs. So
when did you do those? Because the album's coming out like this week.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's
in the past.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
For people watching.
Yeah, so they hit me up in February. So I've done insert number. I don't know how much they let me talk about it, but like I've been regularly working with that stuff since, and it's pretty much occupied most of my time. So
awesome, man.
It's kind of cool. I look back and I'm like, yeah, if you told yourself in a few years you'd just be kind of a go-to artist for them, and your entire first quarter your year is consumed by that, I wouldn't believe it, but it's super fun. I really like working with the new guy. I say that as if he's a real person, but I really like you draw Papa Emeritus 4 so many times that you get a little tired of all those wrinkles.
They keep
you close your eyes.
Different ways to design them.
Yeah, so when they, it was like the coolest thing was just being able to like, when they sent me all of the images of him, like before he was released, I was like, that's the coolest feel. Like, even before even working on anything, it's like being able to like see what they all look like and the new stuff, seeing the new album cover that Zbigniew Bielak did, who's, the greatest artist ever working right now. But, that was just super cool. Other than that, I've been working a lot with Brewhouse Brewing in Portland. I had a really awesome, when I was visiting some family, because that's where my family is in Portland area. I got to do a little, my first ever like little solo show at the brewery. And it's funny because one of their guys, we go way back, we're good friends, but now I've become friends with the staff there, and the owner, Sam, is like amazing. And I've been kind of becoming their bottled stout guy, which is ironic because I don't drink, but
it's a great pairing though. Your style with that stuff is perfect.
Yeah, it's really fun, and I've always wanted to work like on beer labels and stuff, but it never like I got busy with other stuff, and then eventually kind of that relationship happened naturally. And yeah, it's been really fun. So I'm busy working on some new stuff with them, along with other mentioned stuff. I haven't done a lot. I really want to do more cover work this year. I've only done one. However, I think it's my favorite cover to date. You've seen it, Lee.
Oh yeah. That is
yeah.
Show me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, don't worry. I know I'm not going to show anyone anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, contractually, I cannot do that.
Yeah. Well, but it's cool because it's on one of my favorite labels too, and I'm excited. And they're super cool band, and super excited about that. I don't know when it's coming out, but it's
No, it is.
Yeah. So it's hard to plug all this stuff that I have no idea when the timeline is of it. But yeah, I've just been consumed by the Pope guy this whole time. God, my cat has been crazy this entire time. I'm sorry.
And if anybody's watching, lives in Atlanta, you might see me at some shows, and I think Noah's going to be hanging out as well in ATL coming up soon too. So
speaking of ghosts, if you see us, we'll be at the Ghost Show. So if you see us for some reason, say hi.
Absolutely. Quick plug on my end. There'll be an album cover coming out soon that I just did. It's for my buddy's band. His project's called Ben and the Bloodshots. It's like a dark country folk punk type record. Really excited with how it's turning out. I also will have a piece of art at the Small Works Gallery in the Convent in Philadelphia. I don't know all the other artists at this particular date, but I'm pretty excited to be part of a show. Yeah. That'd be my first gallery. And then I still have those like crawling chaos panther prints if you guys are interested too. But with all that in mind, you guys stick around just for a couple of minutes. Thank you guys again
that's
for...
I'll
tell you.
Have it right there.
Yeah. Nice, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got a Noah Meihoff original right over to my left to look at every day.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, for everybody watching, I really am enjoying this art series. Now that like I've had all these interviews and the community's kind of built up, I really feel like I might be onto something here, because it's really cool having people come back and just have these concise discussions. Please follow both James and Noah on social media, and should be a new episode in about 2 weeks. Thank you guys. See ya.
See you guys.
Thank you.